What's up guys, Lou here, and we're finally going to start up this ultimate gaming PC build. You'll see I've got my chassis up here, as well as the motherboard, the power supply. I've got a bunch of screwdrivers as well, definitely more than necessary, but it's better to be safe than sorry. I'm also going to be installing the memory, the RAM in this video, this wonderful stuff up here. I've got hardware on the table that's been included with the chassis, so all your screws, etc. And then the last thing to mention is this backplate that is going to sit on the back side of the chassis. So let's go ahead and remove the window from this Corsair Obsidian 800D beast of a case, and on the inside you'll see a number of screw holes available. Now the screw holes that are available for you are each going to correspond with a different size of motherboard, so you're going to want to know which size your motherboard is before you start. And then you're going to install these little things here. They're called standoffs, and they help to separate the board from the actual chassis. They act as little spacers, and then your motherboard screws screw into these standoffs. So on my chassis here, you'll notice I've got MATX, EATX, regular standard ATX. So you're going to want to make sure that you install the standoffs into the corresponding hole that matches your motherboard dependent on size. Installing the backplate is easy. That's maybe the easiest thing in the whole build. You just pop it into the back. There's no tools necessary. Next, you want to go ahead and install the motherboard. Now, you want to be gentle with it because it obviously is a fairly fragile component. And the next thing to do is make sure that all those standoffs line up with the motherboard holes. Make sure they're all lined up before you even go ahead and install one of the screws. The next thing to do is push it back so that the ports are all accessible through the back plate. So here's some paperwork that came with the chassis, and you'll notice that there's a number of different screws that they've included. You're going to want to go ahead and grab the hard drive and motherboard screws. They are a little bit different and they're a specific length. Now, one tip here is rather than go ahead and install the screws or screw them in really tight and all in a row, you're going to want to mix it up a little bit. Do one in the top right corner, then do a screw down in the bottom left, etc. And the reason you want to move it around is so that you get a nice balanced effect during the installation of the motherboard. Otherwise, you'll have unnecessary flex being applied to it. You might have certain holes that don't line up by the time you get there. So don't over tighten and don't do a bunch of screws in a row. Instead, bounce around a little bit. The next item we're going to be installing is the power supply. This is the Corsair AX1200i, an absolute beast of a power supply and fully digital. And actually, if you guys are interested in any of the products in this video, links are down in the description so you can check out the products that are used. But the same thing goes here. It's the same kind of idea as I mentioned earlier with the motherboard. You want to line up the holes on the back side of the chassis. These screws actually shipped with the power supply, so you're going to want to use anything that ships with it, assuming they fit, but you could probably get away with using those other motherboard screws if you absolutely had to. And in this case, you want to line them up and then screw them in ever so slightly. Don't fully tighten them. Once again, for the same reason, you don't want to strip anything, and also you want to make sure you get a nice even tightening, nice even feel. Don't over tighten once again, otherwise you'll never be able to remove it. So the next thing we're going to do is install the memory, install the RAM, but first, a quick message from the sponsor of this games for free. So let's talk about the memory now. We're going to go ahead and install this beautiful Corsair Dominator Platinum memory, and it's pretty straightforward to do as well. You just want to clip them in and make sure that they're well seated. In order to do that, you've got to lift up this little white tab along top. It might be hard to see from this angle, so I'll show you it from another angle as well. So these tabs here need to be lifted up so that you've got space to slide in the module, as I'll show you right here. And once again, it's pretty simple. The main thing is just to make sure it's seated well. You want to grab onto the chassis and push firmly, probably more firmly than you think you might have to, and then it'll seat in there properly. And you want to follow the exact same pattern for as many modules as you have. In my case, I've got 4 modules, so as you can see, I've filled up all of the available slots. Anyway, guys, if you enjoyed this UGPC content, please remember to like and favorite the video, as it does help me out a bunch. If you haven't subscribed yet, you might want to do that now, because build video number 2 and 3 are on their way. We're going to talk SSDs. We're going to install the CPU, graphics card, sound card, etc., etc., etc. Anyways, thanks as always for watching. I'll catch you on the next one. Later.